Victory Day in Bangladesh by Shoaib Chowdhury, the editor and publisher of Weekly Blitz, the preeminent anti-militancy, anti-jihad newspaper in Bangladesh. Thanks so much for taking the time. We're trying to explain the history here of Bangladesh-Israeli relations, which go back to the founding of Bangladesh. It was the Israelis that helped Bangladesh to victory, and over time, relations soured to the point where Bangladesh natives aren't allowed to travel legally to Israel. Walk us through the history here of how this developed and how we got to this particular point in time.
Actually, the so-called travel ban for people of Bangladesh was actually imposed back in 1947 when we were part of Pakistan. So with our liberation war in 1971, you know that Israel offered to support our war of independence. And later, Israel actually helped our liberation movement with a lot of things through India. And when Bangladesh was liberated on 16 December 1971, Israel was one of the first countries to recognize Bangladesh. And we should remember that when Bangladesh was fighting the war of liberation, Yasser Arafat was terming our war as a war between a conflict between Israel and Palestine. He was comparing our war with Pakistan as a conflict between Israel and Palestine, and he was branding our freedom fighters as terrorists. So when our freedom movement was going on, the war was going on, Israel was everywhere. Israelis were supporting us. And at the same time, the Palestinians were propagating through the world and branding us as terrorists. So this is the point where, we should have diplomatic relations with Israel from the very day Israel extended its recognition to Bangladesh. But unfortunately, I think something was not correct with our policymakers, especially Khandakar Mushtaq Ahmed, then foreign minister. He was the person who rejected Israel's offer to help our war of independence, and then he refused and rejected again, or did not accept Israel's recognition to Bangladesh. And the fact is that only within 4 hours of 1975, this Khandakar Mushtaq was exposed as one of the conspirators to assassinate Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, the father of the nation of this country. So I would say the person who refused Israel's recognition to Bangladesh was later proved to be an enemy of this country. So our so-called travel ban, or the so-called enmity with Israel, is a creation of the enemies of Bangladesh, not the friends of Bangladesh, number one. Number two, when today we are celebrating 16th our Victory Day, you should know that we have diplomatic relations with Pakistan, a country which was responsible for killing 3 million people in my country and violating hundreds of thousands of women. So if we say that we are having diplomatic relations even with the killer, with our main enemy against whom we have fought this war of independence, and unfortunately, we are not with our real friends like Israel. I think I would be very happy if the Israeli Prime Minister was here in Dhaka today to join our celebration. So in my opinion, Israel is no enemy to Bangladesh or any Muslim country in the world.
You mentioned that the words themselves, except for Israel, have been removed from the passport. But Israelis, even though it says except for Lebanon or except for Syria, can't travel to those countries. So is there do you sense a real significant change in the government's posture outside of removing those 3 words from the passport? Is there something kind of brewing under the surface, or is it, or is that the end of it there? And that's as far as the government's willing to go.
I would like to put in this way. then when it was written, all countries of the world except Taiwan, and when the word was removed, Bangladeshis started doing business with Taiwan. Bangladeshis started visiting Taiwan. I would like to say the Berlin Wall has fallen.
That's really interesting.
Now it's up to the people of Bangladesh and people of Israel to begin communicating with each other, and the gate is open. And I think as I said, it's the beginning of the new era. Hopefully, I'm hoping next year when we celebrate our Victory Day, we will have some delegation from Israel here in Dhaka.